who is here. So if you are a rep, the official rep for the school, please just put it in the chat box, your name, or just your school name, and that way. Okay, cool. Approva for HBS. Okay, cool. Chevy from HSPH, Bailey, GSD, good. Anna, Divinity, or. I found this was so much faster than actually having to say everyone to unmute themselves. Chuck from, so there's two HBS. So is Chuck going to be HBS or Approva? Cool.
Brian, if you can repeat the request, because I think a couple of reps just signed in after you had mentioned it.
Yeah. Cool. When it comes to all folks that just hopped on the call, if you're a rep for your school, please put your name and your school in the chat so we can just record that you're here. Cool, HLS, there we go. HKS, good, Vinith. Once again, for the folks that just hopped on, if you can put your name and your school in the chat if you're a rep, that way we can just record who's here. So far, I have HBS, HSPH, HSD, Divinity School, and HLS and HKS. Cool, for the folks that just hopped on, if you are a rep for your school, if you could just put your name and your school acronyms in the chat, just so we can make sure we capture you. If you're here for just public comment, just hold on and we will get to the public comment once we start and we have a quorum of all the school reps. So is there anyone from HES? Extension School? Anyone from the Graduate School of Arts and Science?
Yeah.
Could you put your name in the chat just so we can record that you're here and the school name? Any reps from the Harvard Med School or Dental School or SEAS, which is Engineering, Arts, and Science? Okay. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I'm just waiting for. Did someone? Oh, Rachel. Okay, Rachel's here from. She says, okay, good. I think we have enough for quorum to start. And cool. So I'll stop the chiming so that doesn't interrupt us for the rest of the meeting. Good. Well, welcome everyone to our last HGC meeting for this current school year. And for many of the executive boards from the current, their last full board meeting. So great for you guys to be here. Welcome. Hopefully everyone is doing well, given all things COVID-19 related. It looks like we do have approval of the agenda. And if anything, I know we were originally supposed to have this meeting at the Harvard Divinity School. So I wanted to give Anna, if you'd be willing, Anna, because I'm not sure if everyone got to read your email, if you would give a nice quick introduction to the Harvard Divinity School just to help educate folks on your school.
Gladly. Hi, everyone. My name is Anna. I take the she series pronouns, and I'm the Divinity School representative at HGC. This is my second year serving as the Div School rep, and I wish that I could show you all the Divinity School campus, but sadly, I can't do that. Our campus is located right next to the School of Engineering and kind of like behind the law school. So what I love about the campus is that we're kind of like in a residential neighborhood. So oftentimes we get close with like families who walk their dogs or like people who walk their like kids. So it's really nice to kind of be nestled in a neighborhood. A lot of people assume that everyone that goes to divinity school wants to be a minister or a rabbi. And that's very true. A lot of students are there to study traditional ministry, but a lot of people go for leadership and spiritual development. So I myself am really interested in public policy and pursuing a career either in politics or public policy. So I study at the intersection of religion and like movements of social justice. So our alumni go on to do so many different things. So that, you know, if you meet someone from Div School, they're not just studying to be a minister. Fun fact is that Ralph Waldo Emerson gave a really famous address in Divinity Chapel, which is one of the oldest chapels on campus, and it's located on like in a building at the Divinity School, which I would show you if we were there. But yeah, I hope one day you'll come visit. We have a really good cafe called Rock Cafe that has super affordable meals and an amazing staff. And you can find a lot of Divinity School students just hanging out there. But I love the Div School. It's a great place. And one day I hope y'all can visit the campus.
Thank you so much. Any quick questions for Anna about the Divinity School?
If anything comes up, you can email me.
All right, then I really do second that. Back in the day when I first came to Harvard, back in, was it 2017 or so, the Divinity School during the summer was just gorgeous and a great place to just study and just get away from, you just felt like you were away from Harvard, but you were still with Harvard at the same time. So definitely a very great study spot. And actually the first place of my first HGC meeting that I ever went to was at the Divinity School. So it always has a special place in my heart. So thank you, Anna. Shinsei, did you want to put up the agenda share, or do you want me to share my screen?
Do you want to share yours? Because I know you're going to pull up some other stuff later too.
Yeah, that's fine. All right, cool. So sharing screen. So yeah, so for our agenda, hopefully we won't be here the full time. We do have a speaker that will be coming in later today, I think at 7:30, if I'm correct. Is that right, Shinsei?
Yep, yeah, she'll be joining at 7:30 from the Harvard Alumni Association, which many of the people on our board will also be alumni.
Yeah, the alumni, and it's really, the reason we brought her in was the whole idea of being able to see how you can still stay involved with Harvard after you move on. So before we get into all the other stuff and reports, I wanted to open up if there is any public comment, and this is for anyone that is not a rep. We have 10 minutes for any public comments to let the group know. Are there any people that have public comment? If you do, can you raise your hand in the Zoom function? Stephanie. Okay, yeah, Stephanie. You can go.
Everyone, thanks. I just want to quickly make a statement from the GSD. So many students from the GSD have been having passionate internal conversations around tuition remittance and financial support in light of the transition to remote instruction. We currently have student representatives drafting a letter to both our GSD administration and President Backow's office asking for financial support. We were just curious if there are similar conversations taking place at other schools, and if we as the GSD, with the help of HGC, can move forward in solidarity as a collective graduate student body. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other comments from the group? And just for the reps, you don't necessarily have to respond in this. It's actually going to be on our agenda for part of our agenda and my report. So I'll also bring it up there for us to discuss. Any other public comments? I'll give it 10 seconds, and then if none, I'll move on to the next piece. Right. Seeing none, moving on to the next part of the agenda, we're updates and reports. And so, okay, cool. So I have quite a couple different updates. I'm gonna go through all of them. So if anyone does have questions on some of these reports, since they do affect us all globally, we'll give some time for quick questions for clarification. But I'd rather put any major discussion items after we get through the presentation and some of the other executive reports. So first, I would like to first start off by saying it has been an amazing honor to work with every single one of you. I've gotten the chance to know, it's kind of a cool thing to know that I got to know 12 different reps from different schools all within 1 year, from the folks that I met at the retreat that we did back in the fall to the new folks that have come here in the spring. It has been an amazing opportunity working with you, and I wish the best for all of you guys and whatever future things you guys do, and that you will be, for the folks that are carrying on till next year, that you will represent your school and the HGC in a positive way. And the folks that are signing off, thank you so much for your service. And I hope that you will galvanize the next group of folks behind you to be involved with the Harvard Graduate Council, because really, as you guys have heard me say over and over and over again since the very beginning, One Harvard begins with us. And if we cannot be One Harvard here at HGC, how can we expect our administrators and many folks outside to really truly be One Harvard? So just always keep that in mind for a lot of the work that you do. Going into some of the general reports for myself, I guess my last report as president, one COVID-19 update. Hopefully everyone has been paying attention to all things COVID-19 on the Harvard School website. And for many of your schools, you also have a local website that deals with local school issues. One thing that did happen, which I want to at least acknowledge, is last week Friday, I believe Friday or Thursday, there was an email that did go out to the faculty and staff. For some schools, it was pushed back out. Like for the School of Public Health, our dean reposted that, which was the email from back out talking about the financial, the state of the financial aspect of Harvard when it came to hiring freezes, no longer using discretionary funds, and also that the provost and the Harvard president and also the deans would actually be taking pay cuts to essentially weather the future COVID-19 response and the financial impact that would have. I did reach back out to the provost. They were a little confused on why that did not go out to the full student body like normal. And so what I suspect is that there was an error where normally it's never happened where faculty and staff get an email, but not the students as well. And so I'm still looking for more information on that. But just wanted to acknowledge that I do not think that was intentional. Normally that is usually how it goes out, but I think somewhere someone slipped in, it just didn't get sent out to students. The second is I want to talk about Students First Pandemic, which many of you guys have been already involved with. And a big shout out to Krish, our chair of information, which has been working with Students First Pandemic to help them build their website. And this is connected to the Harvard Graduate Council website. And you can find it in the resources. But essentially, Students First Pandemic, for the new folks that are here, is a group that we've been partnering with, which has essentially been a major information hub for all things COVID-19 related when it comes to how to get involved, complaints, fixes, what are resources, how to get involved. If your school or you are personally are interested in getting involved with helping, whether it's volunteering at the hospital, whether it's volunteering with the COVID-19 task force with HUHS to help with answer calls, this has been very much a HubSpot. They've done everything from policy to just an opportunity, a place for people to vent and complain. And you should be able to find all the resources here on the site. And so I do encourage you to, and I'll put it in the chat real quick, for you guys all to get familiar with that and then pass that information on to your reps at your school. And I also sent out an email earlier today from HMS, which is also looking for volunteers if you are so inclined to help volunteer at the hospitals. They do have an opportunity for that. And if you yourself have a great idea that you think, especially during this time of COVID-19, that you would think would be useful, please reach out to them and volunteer. And there is a community essentially for everyone. It's a very flat structure and really meant for us to be a resource hub and to synthesize and coordinate as a one Harvard entity. And we've been very closely related to that. And in my role, which will then be passed on to Cinzia, then the university liaison group, which any type of issues that are coming up that involve student life internally, for us to be a liaison to hear people's issues and so forth. The second thing on the agenda is I also sent this email out earlier today, or I think it was last week, was Socialize Remotely. So Socialize Remotely, once again, I'll probably put the link in here as well, is a system that the Provost Office just has been working on as a way to connect students, faculty, staff to online resources that are available across the university that you can access remotely. The whole concept with this is, the cool thing about this site is it does have a Harvard key password. So for example, if you're at the School of Public Health and there's an event that you want to push out to Harvard students only, but you don't want it to be available to everyone, you can put it through this site, knowing that the only people that can get access to this site are people that are Harvard affiliated. And this is a great opportunity. As you can see, just to kind of walk you through, you can put on who the audience is, the themes, the schools. And in many ways, when talking with the Provost Office, Cinzia and I had talked about ways we could connect people into an online form, like one online calendar. And I look at this as actually a test run of, are we actually able to have an online calendar for all 12 schools? And so it will really be on you all to talk to your own student governments, you yourself being able to put things, if you see something, anyone can access this and add an event. So even if you hear about an event at another school and you have the information, you can add it to this site. It has a calendar view, so you can see there's a multitude of different events, and these are all remote, so you can feel like you can be part of the Harvard community in some way. And yeah, there you go. So sorry, computer's glitching out now. All right, cool. So that is Socialize Remotely. So please pass on that resource to your schools. They just passed it out to CODOS, which is the Council of Deans of Students. So you might be hearing your Deans of Student Affairs using it, but please do push it out to as many people as you can. The next is Harvard Votes Challenge, which is, if you guys remember earlier this year, we created a strategic partnership with Harvard Votes Challenge. The only thing I have to say with this is they're also on our website as well. But keep involved with them. And for the folks that I know are graduating and the new reps, Harvard Votes is definitely something that we want to, it's been a grassroots organization that came out of the Harvard Kennedy School, which is essentially to activate people to have civic engagement, not just here within locally, but within the state, nationally, and globally. As we are dealing with COVID-19 and the uncertainty of whether we will have classes in the fall or not, remotely or not, voting is definitely going to be impacted, both when it comes to primaries, when it comes to early voting, and in many ways, it will be so important for the Harvard Graduate Council to be ahead of this in the future and working with students and graduate students across the school to make sure that they are registered to vote where they're supposed to, and that they know all their options for voting. And so I highly encourage the new folks to keep that momentum going moving forward. Last is, well, not last, yesterday, Cinzia, myself, had the President's Circle, or the last President's Circle under me, to really just talk to all the Harvard graduate presidents from the 12 different schools. We had about 7 of the presidents show up. Some of it was conflicts of time. And just to talk about what were issues that were coming up. And one of the major issues that came up was student health insurance, which I think we were able to resolve. But then also this whole idea of prorated reimbursement tuition, which has been a topic that I think has come up since the beginning of when Harvard switched virtually. And it's been a issue that I have been talking personally with the provost's office pretty much weekly. As you saw from the email from President Bacow on Friday, for folks, I think we shared it in the chat, Harvard itself is going through its own financial, not crisis, but there is a deficit in much of the resources that Harvard has, both Harvard as a whole, but then also each individual school has their own set of unique challenges. And I think this has been one of the things that we have been trying to work with. If there is not any prorated or student reimbursement, what are other potential creative options that could be offered to people for the lack of the educational experience? Harvard Kennedy School, the president at the Harvard Kennedy School, Charlene, has been working with some of the other presidents to create a memo, which they're looking for other Harvard graduate presidents and reps. And I know we can't vote on any, we could potentially vote in solidarity, but you guys don't have the document in front of you to know exactly what you're voting on. But essentially, Shinty and I said we'd be willing to pass on this letter and to sign in solidarity for the impact that this virtual learning has had on many of our student body, the student body as a whole. And so that is like been the main thing about student reimbursement. It's a very tricky issue for the folks that are not familiar. Harvard is very decentralized, and the term is every tub at its own bottom, means that every school has its own financial way of how it manages its money, and each school relies on different aspects of money. One resource that might be very useful, which I'll add to the link later on, is looking at the Harvard report, financial report that's publicly available each year, the latest one of 2019, which actually can show the breakdown of your tuition dollars and how much of your school, how much of a proportion that is for your actual school. For many schools, executive education is actually where they get a lot of money from. And that is being hurt right now with COVID-19. And so they are also in a very much of financial crisis. So it's still keeping the issue alive, keeping it going, and making sure that as I move on, making sure that you guys also talk to your local schools to bring up the issue, because it will take a multitude of us to at least raising it to a bar where people, at least the university, acknowledges that this is somewhat of a lack of a personal experience. So with that, I'm going to stop and see if anyone has any questions for clarification. I know I went over a lot, so feel free. So Bailey, you can go.
One moment.
There,
the GSD, the GSD student body has asked some questions regarding possible tuition remittance for incoming students. And we are curious if that is one issue that is being raised or if it's only being talked about for current students.
Right now, most of my conversation has been around current students. Right now, since the university has not actually said that they will be moving remotely for the fall, it isn't something I can address now, but it is something that I have said, if that is the case, what would that look like? They don't really have an answer for most of the administration. It's, for all intents and purposes, the school is going to open in the fall unless otherwise a decision is made from the top that that's not going to happen. So most of the effort has been really addressing the current state, which is the people within spring 2 that have been impacted. And also for summer programs as well. And there are a couple of graduate degrees that actually start and are done over the summer only.
Thank you.
Any other clarifying questions? I know I hit you guys with like a ton of stuff right there. Wish I could be like all like good news all day, but this is just kind of the workings there. Abinaya, did I say that right? I probably butchered that, so sorry.
Perfect. No, you got it. It's
Abinaya. Okay.
Just a question. So in terms of the next steps on this, on the letter or the memo that you mentioned, is that something that the council is going to be able to see, or like that's going to come forward to us that we can expect to see soon, or what are the next steps on that?
When good question. When the memo is done, we can't as a council really endorse per se. This would be kind of a special session of like we can sign on solidarity. What I think Charlene was looking for was to get the other presidents to be able to sign on in support, and not necessarily asking for like if all the presidents say yes, then it's easier for the Harvard Graduate Council president to say yes. But once that letter is done, if it happens before May 1st, I will send it out to all the reps and also the executive, both incoming and the current. If it happens after May 1st, then Chincy will be the one that will send it out for you guys. And it would be more so of seeing what the letter looks like and that we are passing this on to the provost office. But it won't have like HCC endorses this per se, but more so the executive board, Chincy's executive board would have to say, or Chincy herself would say, I am signing in on solidarity. So it would have some HCC input.
Got it. Thank you so much for clarifying.
Sure thing. Any other questions? Oh yes, Brian, where can I find the financial report for each school? As we go through our presentation, I have to like look it up. Or actually, Bailey, if you have it, I think I sent Bailey at one point because I think she asked. If you could put that in the chat for me, that'd be really great from the email I sent. Vinith?
Sorry, Brian, I think I missed this. Can you re-clarify why HGC can't officially endorse the letter?
We could do it blindly. It's just, I don't know what the letter looks like. It's not fully done yet. And so if we were to vote today is our last session as a full full council.
I see.
So it's kind of like a weird thing to endorse something you don't see because your name is being put on it. But what I can guarantee for you, it's a weird timing, and she said she just didn't have it done yet. And they're still looking for how they want to frame it. And so with all those different framings, I think it would be irresponsible for us to say yes, but Chincy is aware of it. She was on the call with me yesterday. And so if it happens before May 1st, I can personally tell you that if it looks good enough, I will personally sign on to it. Or if you guys want to, you could make a vote to where Chincy and I could have the authorization after our own personal viewing of the letter to decide if HCC should endorse it or not. Cool. And also I saw that the report was put into the chat, so thank you. And that will show down the breakdown. I think it's on page 5 or 6 is the breakdown of schools and stuff like that. And that will give you some more information on the endowment and how that works as well. For many folks, you're thinking, oh wow, Harvard is rich with the endowment, but there are a lot of limits and restrictions. And actually the majority of the endowment is restricted. So for example, if any one of you become multimillionaires, which I'm sure many of you guys are, I'm putting it into existence right now. Feel free to give me some of that money in the future, as I have called it into existence already for you. If you were to give Harvard $50 million today, and you said you wanted it to go specifically for a specific group or a professorship or something along that line, it is captured within the whole entire, it's captured in the money as a whole. But let's say you pass on, Harvard still does have to acknowledge and make sure that they use that money the way that you intended it to be used, although it's captured within the endowment. And so keep those things in mind, that even as you as alumni, this is why it's very important for you as alumni to give unrestricted funds. So it gives the university that opportunity to have that kind of money to be flexible with. But many people that do give money, especially large amounts of money, tend to restrict it to certain areas, whether it's their school or a very specific interest that they have. We cannot, if I'm correct, I don't think we can call a later meeting because we will be hitting into reading period for some schools, and based off our constitution, we are not allowed to actually hold meetings during reading period and going into finals as a whole. And so this would be our last meeting. The executive board can meet whenever they want. The president can call them. And so you could do it where the executive board does have the opportunity to vote on anything, but it would be straight from the executive board voting from it. Just checking the chat to make sure I didn't miss any questions. All right, cool. And welcome, dental school rep. Hey, cool. With that, I want to make sure we get to some other things, but we'll hopefully have more time at the end if you guys want to, if you want to kind of ponder some of that information and you have follow-up questions for me at the end. With that, I'll move to Cinzia's Vice President / President-elect report.
Great, I'm just gonna share my screen right now. All right. So, with our general agenda, basically what I just wanted to talk about was our really cool event that we've been, with the advocacy and events team we've been working on for a really long time, that's actually coming to fruition this Sunday, April 26th at 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern time. And basically this is something that we've been thinking of for a really long time, where we wanted Harvard graduate students to have the space to basically talk about any issues that are stressing them out. We're in a period of time where there's a lot of uncertainty, and we don't know what's going to happen with our tuition, with our rent. A lot of us left Boston with all my stuff is still in my room, and I don't know when I'm going to get to that. And I'm all the way out in Alaska now, so it's just we wanted to be the space for people to kind of talk. So that's kind of how the idea came about. And then we reached out to the director of HUHS as well as the director of CAMS. And we actually had the director of CAMS, Dr. Barbara Lewis, as well as two of her other clinicians coming to join us at the end of this event. So I think this will be a really great space for people to just kind of even just ask questions about, what's going to happen, how do we get healthcare, what are some of the resources that are available to Harvard students that are virtual, because apparently there is a lot. And we had a chat with Dr. Lewis the other week where it seems like she also isn't able to reach students with all the resources that she wanted to, because she just sends it out to the deans, and she says she doesn't know if the deans forwards them. So it's also a really great space for HUHS and CAMS to get feedback from hopefully as many schools represented of our Harvard graduate and professional community as possible. And also some members of the provost office will also be joining to add whatever they hear from the end of our event reflections to their mental health task force that they've been working on. So there'll be a lot of people joining us, but we finalized everything this weekend. So here's where you can basically registers. So it's on the agenda. You can register, and it's a Google Doc. And we were asking for everyone to just register by Friday because it is a private event. It's only available for Harvard graduate and professional students. And once we have everything by Friday, we'll send out the questions to Dr. Lewis and her colleagues. And this is basically, what will be happening. I saw there was maybe a question in the chat. I'm not sure if was there a question, Brian? Okay, or if anyone has any questions right now. Oh, okay, I see the chat now. Okay, let's see.
I don't think there's any questions about this.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, so I think it would be a really cool opportunity for our town hall, which is basically everyone gathering together and talking about, whether there's any avenues to improve our mental health, or to talk about issues of how to better our wellness, or even just as an avenue to talk to people from the provost office and the HOHA's office about some of your worries about. Some of the questions that people have posted have been about tuition and the worries of not really knowing what's going to happen next year. So I think this would be a really great space for people to talk about that. So with respect to the reps, I sent out the newsletter this morning with all the different info, welcoming everyone to our meeting today, as well as the mental health event. And then also Humans of Harvard Graduate Council, which we're featuring Anna in. So if you want to like nominate someone or their friends through this, it'll also be really cool. We're going to start that up on Instagram. And the first person we're featuring is Anna, our HDS rep. And she had a lot of really great answers and really cool photos. So we're gonna get that up on Instagram probably today or tomorrow. So if there's anyone in the Harvard community that you think would make a really great story, please nominate them through the link here. And then the resources that Brian mentioned earlier are also here, as well as some of the events from the your schools that your reps sent me. So with that, for the reps, it'll be really great if you can shoot out this newsletter to your respective schools and whatever platform is best. I also created a Facebook event for the mental health event. So if people want to just invite all their friends to it, I made it a private guest list for obvious privacy reasons. But if you want to just invite people that you know to that, that'd be really great, especially because we're taking up the time of many of the people in the administration to kind of get students together and kind of listen to that. And this is something that the provost really, really cares about. And he wanted us to, I mean, it was one of the bases of why we got the $30K Harvard Catalyst Fund. So this event will really be helpful to give them an idea of how we're all feeling in this time of COVID. Also, how we've been feeling throughout the whole year. So that brings me to the next part, where if people wouldn't mind, the main rep from each of the schools who are currently in attendance, just give a quick update on how everything is going at your school. Like we had a public comment from the School of Design talking about how everyone's been really worried about tuition reimbursements. And we would love to hear more about that. But each of the schools, I'll read out in the order that you guys have logged in. If you guys can just give a 1 minute, 2 minute report, just how the general atmosphere is at your schools. So let's start with the business school.
Yep, I can take a stab at it. And Chuck, feel free to add if I have missed anything. But I think the broad update is that the classes, the transition to the online classes have been really well and well received. In the update mail we have from deans, the technical issues which a lot of people were expecting have been kind of resolved. There was a general survey done on how people are feeling, and people are generally more upbeat than they were, post, the transition to online classes were announced. I think the major update and discussion in the school has been around reimbursement and tuition, and I think the concern is less about what amount should be reimbursed or whether the amount should be reimbursed or not. I think the tension in the school and the discussions is that the administration has not been transparent about involving the student community in the broader decision making and involving the broader student association and the students in deciding what the best way forward can look like. From them, it has been a straight opaque no on, these are things which we wouldn't be willing to discuss. And I think that's where a lot of the student mobilization is happening, on making sure that the administration is willing to engage with students and explain rationally on why certain decisions have been taken and why certain decisions, or why, for example, a tuition reimbursement is not possible. I think that's the broader tension which people are finding. And the second is that the business school is doing a decently good job of reaching out to alumni to kind of solve for concerns around internships, job searches. It has been mobilizing a lot of alumni support to make sure that people who have been finding their internships offer or full-time offers being rescinded are able to find through some resources, and are also leveraging the mental health resources to make sure that people are not feeling stressed at this point of time. So I think the broader atmosphere is positive. I think just the issue around transparency has been an issue of concern.
Jinxie, your mic is off.
Sorry, I said thank you so much. I think Anna headed out because she had another meeting. So is anyone else from the Divinity School here who would like to speak on any issues at the Divinity School? If not, we'll move on. Great. Is anyone from the Extension School here who would like to speak about some of the issues that the Extension School is currently facing?
Jessica's unable to attend right now. She's in the middle of an audit, FDA audit, and for her trial. But on our end, it's not quite as I guess, it's not as quite as cut and dry as on your end. We're already online. And so therefore, it's only a few people that have transitioned to fully online because they were attending classes on campus. So I don't see where our argument is I don't think our argument holds up as well as, say, one of the other schools. So that's just my opinion.
Great, thank you so much, Tracy. All right, so next we have Jesus.
Yeah, so it's difficult to generalize because normally I'm on the ground feeling people out, but it's hard to do that online. But just to speak from the experience of my own department, many people are worried about, in the later years, are worried about funding for next year, because in the later years, your guaranteed funding is cut and as in is non-existent and is dependent on teaching. But of course, if teaching doesn't happen next year, then people don't have any funding secured. So the conversation within the department, and I suspect it's similar across other humanities and at least the social sciences, is how to fund the older years, and in particular, whether people who were thinking of going into their final year and were taking dissertation completion fellowship, which normally means that at the end of that fellowship, they have to leave Harvard. There's discussion with Dean Dench, our dean, as to whether that rule can be relaxed, such that if you take this guaranteed 1 year of funding, you then don't have to leave afterwards. And that would give some people in later years a little bit more flexibility, given that the job market is going to be non-existent.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's go with School of Design next. If there's anything you guys wanted to add.
Yes, I believe the broader concerns of students are arriving from two intricacies that we at the GSD, and that we are location and resource dependent. Those of you who are not familiar, the Graduate School of Design, many of the programs are based on a studio type education in which we work collaboratively or singularly, but within a collaborative space of what is often known as the trays in Gund. In addition, that work is very collaborative, but also the resources are very physical in terms of model making, large scale printing, and fabrication, larger scale fabrication. So the access to those resources is what I believe is one of the discontents coming from this tuition discussion, is that we are feeling the brunt of this, specifically the studio-based students are feeling the brunt of this issue. Second, our dean, Dean Whiting, has been diagnosed with cancer in the midst of all of this chaos. And I think that has led to added opacity in this current moment, in that GSD students do not know where we're headed, both in terms of resources and in terms of leadership. To complicate all of this, we're in the midst of student forum elections, and that's proved a fertile ground for really passionate discussions about these issues. And I think you see that in our representation here at the meeting today. I do not want these GSD issues to fly under the rug, because different than maybe HES, which is already in a mostly online forum, the GSD is a very hands-on system of pedagogy. And we're definitely feeling the brunt of online education shift, I think more so than many of the other schools.
Thank you so much, Bailey, for that. Dante, are you still on the call to give an update?
I am here. Can everybody hear me? Okay. In terms of, I guess, the response to COVID-19 at HGSE, I want to echo business school reps concerns about the lack of transparency. I think a lot of us were kind of caught off guard when we realized that he had sent an email out that none of our student body had received, and we only heard about that either through like the media or through Bridget Dean Terry Long's letter the next day. So just to echo the concern of transparency, there's a significant number of people at our school who are pushing for tuition reimbursement. The general number is 17% tuition reimbursement. I can, I guess, push those out to you so you can see how the breakdown in terms of figures was created. In terms of our international student community, like 26% of HGSE is international, and a lot of my classmates are my classmates. They're abroad, like Singapore, Israel, China, other parts of the world, and many of them are taking synchronous online courses in different time zones. So for example, if you live in Singapore or Taiwan or Korea, you're literally taking a 3 p.m. class at 3 a.m. So that's a big concern for the international students who have left and gone back home. Also, to echo the GSD reps' concerns about like their version of like Studio or our version of Studio, we have a lot of classes that are collaborative in nature, based on like project learning, and those classes essentially that involve like deliverables being in our design studio, education design studio, or projects that involve being in person and making something, constructing something. Those classes essentially have lost a lot of value for our students. So I think those are the major, I guess, concerns at HGSE.
Great, thanks so much, Dante. So next we have HKS.
Hi, thank you, Chinsia. So a couple items on our end. First, I want to echo what Dante said about international students and time zones, the educational experience. It's definitely been tough for international students. I'm a CA right now, and I've been hearing on occasion it has been problematic for a number of students. So doubling down on that remark. Another item, and the mental health event coming up is very timely, Chinsi, and I'm glad you brought it up because it's something that the students have been raising concerns over. Students are feeling stressed about being quarantined and isolation for quite a bit of time. So we definitely have been hearing that students want this sort of an outlet to be able to talk to someone. So at least the mental health town hall, I'll be sure to get that out so that the HKS students have that resource available to have someone to talk to. For a while, students were concerned about just how grading would work, and HKS did move to pass-fail, so that's something that the administration responded to, which was great. It's definitely reduced a lot of stress for students at HKS, so that has worked out. In terms of housing, this is a universal thing, but people have been concerned about what happens when people have are in Harvard housing, but then one roommate leaves. So that was an issue that's been ongoing. How do students just deal with these sorts of issues where they rely on other students to kind of cut down the cost of housing, but then, so that's an ongoing thing. Another big one is jobs and internships, especially for people who are between years, or if they're really relying on a job coming out of school. It's like, what do people turn to in terms of finding work? Because a lot of people just aren't hiring right now. And so KSS, Kennedy School Student Government, has been working closely with, we have the OC, the Office of Career Advancement, to try to figure out what are the best ways for people to get in the recruiting cycle and have a good chance of finding a job. Other than that, the regular tuition reimbursement stuff that other people have mentioned. So those are some of the highlights.
Great, that sounds really great. So next, I believe we are at HLS.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Diego. I'm gonna be with you guys from here on out. But yeah, so pretty much we've had a lot of the same issues that a lot of the other schools have had, especially the financial reimbursement question. We've been talking with the administration a lot about that, and it's pretty much a lost fight for us. I'm not entirely sure how that would play out university-wide. We also moved to a pass-fail system, but now there's a call to remove the low pass from our regular grading scale, like just in general. So I think like that's been like a really big deal. So we'll probably see some sort of action there in the future, but that's not necessarily COVID related. That's just like some of the transition stuff. We've also been dealing a lot with the summer internship stuff, especially when it comes to the funding of the summer internships. We've been dealing a lot with questions about grants and the availability of accessibility loans and stuff like that. So pretty much on the same boat as everybody else. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for us. It's pretty on board with the rest of you guys.
Thanks so much. I know HLS, was talking with Daniel, you guys have been working a lot on also developing some sort of like mental health platform. Do you know what the update is with that? Have you guys gotten any?
Yeah, that's just like it's a continuing conversation. I think you're right. I think that's been going on for like a few months. I think even for a few years now. And so I think we're getting closer, but I think it's still a fight.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna skip the med school for now. Let's go to the dental school, because I know for us especially came on this chat today, and it's his birthday today, so we can all wish him a happy birthday.
Thank you, Chintzia. Yeah, so the dental school, especially when you consider that we're so clinically focused, we've been pretty affected by this. Especially our third and fourth years. Our first years are with the medical school, and most of that is preclinical academic training anyways, so I think they're generally okay. The second years are also primarily academic training, so I think they're also generally fine. It's our third and fourth years, and incoming third years that are pretty massively affected actually by this. A couple of our graduating fourth years are facing uncertainty on whether they'll be able to move on into their residencies and residency placements within a few months, because a lot of them had unfinished requirements. And so there's a lot of negotiation between our school and sort of the National Dental Board, CODA, between, in terms of how we're going to mitigate the impact this is going to have on graduating fourth years. With regard to third years, they're facing a lot of lost time that they would otherwise use into fulfilling their clinical requirements that we have. How that's going to be mitigated in the future is sort of a point of open discussion. I think we're considering expanding clinical days and potentially changing up the requirements a bit, but that's a lot of uncertainty that is currently not entirely being clearly addressed, but understandably it's sort of a dynamic situation at hand. We don't really know when we'll be able to open up our clinics and be able to see patients again. But otherwise, what they've been doing for at least my class, which is the incoming third years, is they've been taking a lot of the academic content, even from our later third year or our fourth year, and shoving it into these past couple of weeks. And it's sort of a mixed bag, because a lot of this stuff is stuff that you learn academically and then apply clinically. And since we can't do the practical application, it's sort of been a bit of a confusingly received system. One thing with regards to tuition is we've been having discussion. I don't think it's progressed that much with regards to sort of cutting down our clinical fees. So we have clinical fees baked into our tuitions, which are actually pretty substantial. It's like $15,000, $20,000. And the administration has seemed open to the idea of cutting those down, but that hasn't really necessarily progressed. They're not as open to cutting down other elements of our tuition. But so a lot of sort of uncertainty, and especially again, since we don't know when we'll be able to open up our clinics. So I don't really have much more to update after that, but it's a lot of sort of undetermined stuff.
Thanks so much. Okay, so I'm gonna give a really quick update on the medical school. Pretty similar. They actually moved one of our clinical courses online. So right now I'm taking the radiology clerkship online, which was supposed to be done in person. So we're able to do that. But then basically May and June, there's nothing really that they can do for at least my program, which is the one that's separate from the main pathways group, which I think they are doing more classroom online. But then for us, we were just kind of like told that we would just hang out those 2 months. So it's a continuing conversation for us as well. One thing also is like for our dorms, we were told to leave our dorm maybe a month ago, and there's talk about reimbursement for the dorm costs, but I haven't really gotten anything for that, and I don't really think there's been talk at all for us talking about reimbursement of tuition. So that's definitely something to know, that other schools have been working on this, and something to check in with the medical school community. So then very last, we will have, I don't think, is anyone from C's here? I don't think so, right? Okay, great. So now we'll just have our last report from School of Public Health, and then we actually have our speaker, Erin from the Harvard Alumni Association, who is here. So we want to get to her as soon as possible. So we'll have School of Public Health.
Great, okay. So I think to start with the positive, the School of Public Health is probably feeling more relevant and passionate than ever before, and there's a lot of student organizing around different volunteer opportunities and research and contact tracing, as well as some pretty solid efforts to maintain a sense of community in a virtual way. I would say that also, by listening to what's going on at the other schools, they have been pretty accommodating for international students in different time zones, and folks who are living in the international housing were able to break their lease when they left. Similar stresses around pass-fail. There's been a lot of ongoing conversation around that, although it's sort of simmered in the last few weeks. Tuition reimbursement, stress around practicum finding, and then I would say two things that haven't come up yet is that we do have a lot of clinicians and particularly physicians at the School of Public Health, many of whom have returned to the front lines, and so are trying to balance that and their role in the response with academics, I think, has been stressful. And we also have a lot of young parents, and so studying from home with kids who are home from school, I think, has been a big burden for some of our students, for sure.
Great, thank you so much. So that's a great summary, actually, of all the different issues. There's a little bit of overlap on certain issues, and then there's some issues at certain schools that we don't really see at the other ones. So that was really, really great to see that from such a diverse range. So actually, I think I'll probably like type that up more thoroughly and like send it out so that other people can see all the issues that we're dealing with at our respective schools. So if there's anything that you guys would like to add based on these notes, please email me afterwards, and I would love to include it on like a little note that we send out to our students audience. So next, we are just gonna actually quickly skip our other updates, because Erin from Harvard Alumni Association, I believe she is here. Erin, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Great, thank you. I'm so sorry we ran over time.
Oh, you're fine. I'm glad to be here. It's nice to meet you all. I hope to be able to do so in person.
Yeah, great. So you have 10 minutes and the floor is yours.
Great, thanks very much. So I'm gonna try to share my screen here. Maybe if I could.
Cynthia, you might have to give her authority as a co-host.
This is host disabled participant screen sharing?
Yeah, she just has to go to your name and go to more and then give you the rights. She has a new computer, so she.
Well, I appreciate you all having me. In the meantime, I'm just going to run through. I've got a few slides.
There you are.
Oh, thank you very much.
You should be able to share your screen.
To share just a little bit of information about the Harvard Alumni Association, which you are all already members of. I know many of you are graduating, and as I said, even for those who are not yet graduating, you're already members of the HAA, so we're glad to have you. So some happy alumni here to welcome you. So as I said, 100% of Harvard's alumni are members of the HAA, which means that we have a really kind of wonderfully diverse group of people who make up the HAA. They're the current degrees by school. Of course, that will be updating here shortly, as many of you receive your degrees. And the group will be growing, which we are always glad to see. So the HAA is the association of all alumni of Harvard University. Each of the schools also has an alumni office that is resident at the school. So as alumni, you'll be hearing both from the alumni office of your respective school, as well as from the HAA as the university-wide alumni association. And we also work in partnership with each of the school's alumni offices to provide you as alums the best kind of means of connection and community that we can. Our alumni are in more than 200 countries, so wherever you may go after graduation, you are likely to find another Harvard alum there. And you know, there are various ways that you can connect through clubs and shared interest groups, through continuing education events and trips, online services, and we also try to get faculty and university leadership out on the road as much as possible. So hopefully you'll really be able to kind of find Harvard wherever it is that you are, that you're going from here. So this is the mission statement of the HAA. Maintains and enhances a highly engaged, vibrant community of alumni and friends worldwide. What that really means is that we work to connect alumni to each other and to Harvard. And so that's how we kind of view the work that we do there. And while there is staff at the HAA, it's also an organization that is very much volunteer driven. So when I say we, I mean really kind of all of us. And when we talk about alumni engagement, we tend to think about it in terms of three behaviors: communicate, participate, and volunteer. And you know, within each of those kind of larger buckets, there are many different ways that you can connect to Harvard and to your fellow alums. The most basic, you know, form of connection is communication. We do that emphatically and often. So even as you leave, you will receive messages from Harvard looking to connect you back to the resources and the news and intellectual content of the university. We also want to help you stay in touch with each other. And a great way to do that is through the HAA online directory. All of Harvard's alumni are listed in there. It's a great way to get in touch with folks. And we'll take a look a little bit more at that. This number, actually, I'm realizing now the 370 doesn't line up with the 343 I showed you. The difference there is accounted for by associate members, which includes current students and some folks who have participated in programs that aren't degree granting, but that meet certain requirements in terms of kind of the length of time and how robust they may be. The Harvard Alumni Network is on LinkedIn. It's a great place to connect with your fellow alumni as you're thinking about careers. We're also on Twitter and Instagram. You follow and like. You can also tag us. We love to see what's going on. And I think also now that people are kind of dispersed in this way, it's nice to see kind of what's going on, and Harvard really is where you are in a way that it hasn't been before. Also, obviously, Facebook, the magazine, Gazette, and as I said, even if you're not seeking those things out, we'll be sending them to you. The alumni directory is something I want to make sure that everybody's kind of aware of, and that you're getting in and updating your profile there. It's a great way to connect with folks wherever it is that you are now, if you plan to be somewhere else in the future. And also you can sort and filter by various things, including career aspects. I know that jobs and careers, something is that on a lot of people's minds, not only those who are graduating in the current pandemic and recession here. And Harvard alumni are really great in terms of connecting each other and career support. So please keep that in mind as you move through your alumni life. Sorry. You can email anybody in the directory. Some people share their email addresses right up front, but even if they don't, there is a blind email tool in there. And so I would encourage you to use that as you're seeking to connect with people. And I mentioned careers. The directory has a career network, which you can opt into. Actually, the most common form of service, alumni service, is helping another alum find a job. We did an alumni survey a little while ago that actually bore that out in terms of making career connections, both in terms of kind of informational interviews and also more direct connections to employment. So the Career Network is a great resource as you're thinking about what your next steps may be, and also something I would encourage you to participate in. As you join, you will get outreach, and it's a great way to connect with other folks that you may or may not know, the people who work in your field or with whom you have shared interests, so it helps to discover your larger alumni community. Participate. There's a lot of ways that you can participate in the alumni community. There are almost 200 Harvard clubs around the world. In fact, it's 199. So if somebody wants to go out and start that 200th one, we look forward to that. We also have almost 60 shared interest groups and a range of programs that take place throughout the year. So Global Networking Night is a big one. It takes place each January. Last year, it was in about 125 cities around the world. One night everywhere. So it actually rolls for about 24 hours where there's a global networking night going on somewhere. And wherever you land, it's a great way to connect with your fellow alumni. Harvard Alumni Travels puts out dozens of trips a year where alumni are able to travel together and also with faculty hosts. And in addition to that, there is a range of alumni programming that goes on both online and in person when that becomes an option again. So here, another way to participate, and I want to plug this, is voting for overseers and HAA elected directors. Harvard is unique. It's a rarity that a university is governed by its alumni in the way that Harvard is. And so that is, something as a a citizen of Harvard, it's important to make sure that you're voting for the overseers. And the same time you vote for the HAA elected directors, which sit on the board of the Harvard Alumni Association. And we will expect to see some of you on that ballot in the future. So talking a little bit about clubs and shared interest groups. Clubs are based on geography. They exist locally around the world. SIGs are global, and they're based on interest and identity. As I mentioned, there are 199 clubs worldwide. In addition to the 199 clubs, and you can see where they are there across the bottom of the screen, we also have HAA contacts in about 50 additional places where the alumni population is not large enough, where it necessarily makes sense to run the administration of a Harvard club, but where the Harvard alumni community is gathering and participating in the local community. I should also say, I think when we talk about clubs, a lot of people think about the Harvard Club of Boston and New York, which are our two landed clubs that have actual physical buildings. They are the only clubs that have that type of physical space. And they are also the only clubs that have kind of the type of dues that go along with supporting that type of physical space. So many of our clubs don't charge dues at all. A lot that do, you know, they're very affordable. They tend to range from, you know, $15 on the low end to, you know, maybe 50 on the high end. And for those that participate in, you know, events throughout the year, it ends up being a pretty good value. And as I said, many don't charge dues at all. So that hopefully, you know, should not be a barrier to entry for anyone. Many clubs that do charge dues offer free or reduced dues for recent graduates. So as you, those of you who are graduating kind of move on, I encourage you to take a look at the clubs directory at alumni.harvard.edu and check out an event or see what's going on with your local community. Shared interest groups, there are 58 of them. As I mentioned, they're all global. Some of them do operate with a chapter model, so they have kind of local governance and leadership in various cities. Many of them operate kind of as virtual organizations, but will host events in various places. The SIGs, for the most part, do not charge membership dues. And they, you know, they break into various different buckets, which you can see listed here. So whether it's professional, you know, groups like Harvard Alumni in Healthcare, Harvard Alumni Entrepreneurs, Harvard Alumni Real Estate Organization, Harvard Alumni in Aerospace is one of our newer ones. So lots of ways to connect around professional interest. We also have a large number of cultural identity and shared experience groups. So those include the Harvard Black Alumni Society, Harvard Latino Alumni Alliance, Harvard Gender and Sexuality Caucus, First Gen Harvard Alumni. All of these are listed on alumni.harvard, and there are links there to click through and sign up to start receiving communications and get involved from any that you are that you may be interested in. So I mentioned the directory. I'm not brave enough to toggle back and forth between slides and the internet, but I'm happy to show you if you like. On alumni.harvard, under the community tab, you can get to a directory of the clubs or the SIGs. The clubs directory sorts by geography. The SIG directory can be sorted by type. It's super easy to find a community to connect with. Also on alumni.harvard, the programs and events calendar is a great way to discover what's going on in your area. I think you'd be surprised to see kind of how many different things are happening in how many different places in the Harvard alumni community on any given day. Encourage you to take a look at it. If you go there now, you will see a lot of online events and a lot of canceled or postponed events. But we, as I said, we look forward to getting together in person as soon as it's possible. And then of course, volunteer. And there are lots of ways that you can get involved as a volunteer in your alumni life. We talked a little bit about clubs and SIGs. Joining the board of a club or a SIG is a great way to help kind of guide the activities wherever you live or whatever you may be interested in. A lot of, those activities, they include social and intellectual content as you might expect, but also a lot of public service going on through the clubs and through the SIGs. So that is a great way to get involved. I know that all of you are volunteer leaders now, so we hope to see you as volunteer leaders in the alumni community as well. In addition, there are nonprofit board recruitment fairs that are run by a number of the clubs around the world, which is always a great way to find new ways to get involved in your community and plug into local nonprofits wherever you are. If you are interested in connecting via social media, you can sign up to be a social media ambassador, and it's kind of gamified, which is fun via Crimson Connect. And then of course, as I mentioned, there is our governance structures where we you can give your time and your thoughts in both electing our leaders and hopefully I'm quite sure we'll see somebody on that slate in the future. So I'd encourage you to check out the website where you can find both the kind of one-off events or opportunities in a single day or an evening to volunteer with your fellow alumni, as well as more sustained volunteer programs and things that you can get involved with. And then just want to put in a little plug, especially, that Harvard has been our home for so many of us, and then we come to a point, where we don't live here anymore. That being said, we invite you to come to the HAA Welcome Center whenever you are back on campus. We're at 124 Mount Auburn Street. You can come in, get out of the cold, grab some coffee, and we're always happy to see you there. So I hope when your travels do bring you back to Cambridge that you'll come and see us. And then one thing I just want to put in a little plug, no to do right now, but you'll be receiving kind of throughout the spring and into the summer emails from the Harvard Alumni Association outlining some of these opportunities that we touched on, and sharing other information about alumni life generally. Email forwarding is a big one that people often ask questions about. You don't need to do anything at this point. You will get an email after graduation to set up your forwarding account, your alumni.harvard email account. And then you can take the harvard.edu with you wherever you go. So that's it for me. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
So yeah, thank you so much, Erin. That was like a really good comprehensive. I feel even being on the board, I felt like that was like the best like summarization of everything that I was doing. I got in the big context. So we have a couple minutes for questions. So I see one question from Dante.
Hello, thank you for the quick presentation. It was very informative. I have a few questions. You just went over the email question, which is excellent. I want to also ask you about the if you're in any way affiliated with the access to journal databases after graduation? And if so, could you give us a quick rundown of that? And finally, as the Harvard Club is not, they don't have like physical locations in many countries, only in New York and Boston. Are there any affiliations with other clubs in those countries, for example, like the American clubs that are worldwide? Does Harvard have any type of affiliation with those?
Yes, so on the journal access question, alumni can sign up for special borrower privileges via the library system. And so there are some electronic resources that are available through that. It's not as extensive as what you can access now as a student. That is something that we are always thinking about, and this is a question that does come up, and so, you know, hopefully that will expand as we go, but there is limited electronic journal access now. And again, that Harvard Key has made things a lot easier as we've moved to single sign-on, although it wasn't easy trying to move 300,000 alumni onto Harvard Key, and we haven't done that yet. But you can sign up through the Harvard Library, and the directions on how to do so are there on their site. I believe that there's a link on alumni.harvard that can send you there. And then the question regarding affiliations with other clubs around the world, there is a lot of Ivy and Ivy Plus collaboration between the Harvard clubs and the clubs from those other universities. And is your question more about kind of physical space in clubhouses, or?
It would be about any other affiliations, physical or just kind of meeting in person type clubs.
Sure. So a lot of the clubs, as I said, do partner with other Ivy organizations, and will host a number of events together. And you know, kind of depending on the alumni population, where you are or where you may be, you may see more or fewer of those types of partnerships. In terms of actual spaces, I have seen in different places, you know, like different, each of the clubs kind of works out their own member benefits. And so for some of them, I do believe they have, you know, arrangements with, you know, for instance, the Harvard Club of San Francisco often will do their events at the University Club. And so I think that they have some sort of kind of arrangement with them vis-a-vis membership to that club. I don't think private clubs are something that are necessarily on the rise. In a lot of ways it's kind of another era, but where they do still exist, I mean, sometimes the clubs will partner with them and use the space, but more often than not, we're seeing more and more that clubs are holding their events in, you know, either workspaces or kind of restaurants, bars, museums. They tend to kind of really kind of engage in their local establishments.
Okay, we have probably time for one more question. If not, that's okay. Erin and her amazing staff are really good and easy to get to, and are more than happy if you have specific questions on your own status, as many of us are going into transitioning to our alumni status. So thank you so much, Erin, for your time.
Absolutely.
And looking forward to being on the other side.
Thanks so much, Erin.
Thank you. Brian and Chauncia have my contact information. You can also find me in the alumni directory, so there's a challenge. And I look forward to hearing from each of you. Please don't hesitate to reach out if I can be helpful. And for those of you who are graduating, best of luck with all of your future endeavors. You know, I think on behalf of the alumni community, and I won't take up too much more of your time, but I have to say the amount of concern that has been pouring into Cambridge for everybody who, you know, has been displaced by the de-densifying efforts, and particularly for those of you who are graduating and who are having a very different spring than, you know, many of us had, and what everybody kind of looks forward to. You know, there's a lot of feeling for you, and I think you'll find that you really will be embraced wherever you go, you know, in light of that. And so I hope you'll make it back to Cambridge for a future spring, you know, to celebrate. I know it's not the same, but you know, but there it is. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. In our last 5 minutes, I know we skipped over reports real quick, and I want to make sure we get out here in time. So Jasmine, I'll let you go first with the report. You have like a minute or two.
Yeah, I just want to be really quick, I guess. So we had our State House visit over Zoom. It was really great. A lot of us met representatives and staffers when reps couldn't meet us. There was like 7 meetings total. I was in 4. So the 3 pieces of legislation that we're pushing forward, one was on sexual harassment on campus for graduate students, and the other one was on climate change. And then the last piece was a line item on funding for a program called GEAR for H-1B students who were not able, who would get funding after and kind of help with their H-1B visa after they graduate so they don't have to leave, especially those who created startup companies. What we found out from those meetings is that basically everything was pretty much sidelined. So everyone's focusing on COVID. So we don't even know if that line item of the GEAR program will stick around because there's no money for anything. What they did suggest, and a lot of reps strongly suggested, that we continue pushing these pieces of legislation. So I'm hoping like the next chair of advocacy and the EAC kind of push it, because it's not something, if we keep pushing it, something that they won't forget. These items were already going through the pipeline and they were almost going to be voted on, but because of timeline, those that have to be reelected within the next 2 years. So basically their session ends in July. They might extend it to August. And even with that said, they might not get everything that they wanted to vote on through, especially, you know, with COVID taking over. So, I mean, it was a great meeting. They were very open. They told us a lot of stuff. Like, there's a lot to unpack with it. You know, if anybody has questions, I'm happy to email you with responses, but there was a lot with that. And we took some screenshots over Zoom, so they were very, very nice about that. But yeah, overall, I strongly suggest take a look at the legislation that we signed on with MIT and continue to push it forward, because the biggest fear I have, and that I brought up, was that we'd have to wait another 2 years to see this legislation go through. And being that it was so close to being voted in, I think if they said if students continue to, you know, lobby, that it will be kind of pushed forward. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
And I know.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to quickly add on to that. I had emailed the representative, I think Marjorie Decker, and she didn't get back to me before our April 15th meeting date, but she's the one where the district of Harvard's Cambridge, Harvard Square campus is under her jurisdiction. So if anyone's interested, I'll put Jasmine's email there. We might set up a separate meeting with her if anyone's interested in learning more about these and speaking with her or her staff.
Hi. I know I got to Tracy. I know we talked about Humans of Harvard, fireside chats. Jessica, did you have anything to add on Earth Day events? You have like 1 minute, if you do.
Sure, thank you, Brian.
If not, that's fine.
Yeah, I just thought this is the 50th anniversary of Earth Week, so the Office of Sustainability is doing various virtual engagements. They have a social media toolkit on how to promote this. If the reps can please continue to share with your school.
Cool. Thank you. And the link is in the agenda, so do click it. And you'll see more information about everything that we've pretty much talked about today. I personally will stay on the line for a little bit if anyone has like other existential questions they want to learn about. But I also want to be respectful to all of your guys' time, as I'm sure everyone has been bouncing from Zoom call to Zoom call to Zoom call to even more Zoom calls. But I do want to end with just saying again, as I did my welcome, it has been a great honor working with all of you. And for the new reps, please make sure you stay in touch. Hopefully we have your emails. If we don't have your emails or someone forward it to you, please make sure you email us either at vp@htc.harvard.edu or president@htc.harvard.edu, just so we make sure we have all of your up-to-date information so we can start reaching out to you come fall time. There are no more meetings for the remainder of the semester, but even though for the folks that will be here come next year, feel free to reach out to Chintzia and her team as things are being planned, keeping people abreast about things that are going on at your school. Again, I hope you all stay in connection after all graduations. It was kind of nice to end it with Aaron's talk about alumni community, and really, I think that whole idea of One Harvard I'm still part of that One Harvard mission, even though I may not be here anymore. And so looking forward to a lot of the great work that you guys will do next year. And for the folks graduating, the most amazing work that you guys will do in your professions. With that, is there a motion to adjourn? It has to come from my school of public health.
Motion to adjourn.
There we go. Is there a second, which I think I heard?
Second.
Meeting is adjourned, but feel free if you do have, if you do want me to, I'll stay on the call for a little bit if you have any questions that you guys want to talk about, but just wanted to be respectful of your time.
I think Avnaya had a question.
Yeah, one question. In your conversations with in the President's Circle, I'm not sure if that's the body that would be discussing this. I was just wondering for the student advocacy front, I know that there's been some coverage of Harvard receiving $9 million through the CARES Act, with half of that supposed to be going to student financial aid, emergency financial aid. I'm wondering if you have any information on that, just so I know the status of that, or if you've heard anything about it.